Houston. Coming up this hour, we'll dive into today's top stories, including reactions to the fatal stabbing of a woman on a North Carolina train. I'm Ernie Manous.
And I'm Celeste Diaz-Sherman. We'll also discuss the expansion of Ben Taub Hospital with Brian McLeod, the Administrative Director of Communications for Harris Health System.
And I'm Frank Billingsley. Plus, we'll learn about the Duchman family winery from founders Drs. Stanley and Lisa Duchman.
And we want to hear from you. Give us a call or send us a text at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. You can also watch us on YouTube by going to houstonpublicmedia.org and clicking the big orange banner.
All that and more right here on Hello Houston after the news from NPR and News 88.7.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Airports in Poland, including the main international airport in Warsaw, are open again after Polish and NATO forces shot down several Russian drones that entered Polish airspace. NPR's Rob Schmitz has the latest.
Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk says fighter jets from both NATO and Poland were scrambled to shoot down the Russian drones that had entered Polish airspace overnight. The operation marks the first time that a NATO country has directly engaged Russian assets in its airspace since Moscow's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. Tusk called the incursion a large-scale provocation by Russia. On Tuesday, Poland said it would close its borders with Belarus due to what it called aggressive military exercises, as well as a growing number of provocations from Russia and Belarus. In 2022, a stray Ukrainian missile struck a Polish village, killing 2 people. Rob Schmitz, NPR News, Berlin.
On Truth Social, President Trump questions Russia's latest action, adding, quote, "Here we go." He says he plans to speak with the president of Poland today. Meanwhile, the White House is monitoring escalating tensions with 2 U.S. allies in the Middle East, Israel and Qatar. The U.S. says Israel acted unilaterally in launching a strike on Qatari soil yesterday, in which several people died. Israel was targeting Hamas officials, vowing to keep up the attacks until hostages in Gaza are released and Hamas is eradicated. Yesterday, Trump reacted with concern after the strike.
I'm not thrilled about the whole situation. It's not a good situation. But I will say this, we want the hostages back, but we are not thrilled about the way that went down.
Meanwhile, Houthi rebels in Yemen say Israeli forces are attacking the capital, Sana'a. There's been no confirmation from Israel. The Iran-backed Houthis are aligned with Gaza's Hamas in their war with Israel. The U.S. Supreme Court will hear arguments on the legality of President Trump's far-reaching tariffs in early November. NPR's Nina Totenberg has details.
The Trump administration has justified its sprawling tariffs against other countries as needed to stem the flow of fentanyl across U.S. borders and to rectify what Trump has called country-killing trade deficits. But 2 lower courts have ruled that the tariffs exceed any power authorized by Congress, and the business community, which normally backs Trump policies, is on the other side this time, contending that the tariffs have inflicted profound harms on American businesses, particularly small businesses. Nina Totenberg, NPR News, Washington.
At the last check on Wall Street, the Dow Jones Industrial Average was down nearly 200 points, or roughly 0.5%, at 45,509. This is NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Alexandra Hart. The Texas A&M Board of Regents has ordered an audit of coursework taught at its schools. This amid pushback from conservative lawmakers after a video showed a professor teaching gender identity in a children's literature class. A video of the incident was posted on social media.
I just have a question because I'm not entirely sure this is legal to be teaching. Because according to our president, there's only 2 genders, and he said that he would be freezing agencies' funding programs that promote gender ideology.
The student also said the lesson went against her religion. That professor was fired. A dean and department head were also removed from leadership positions. Texas's new parental consent requirement for health services in public schools is causing confusion and raising questions for parents, school districts, and nurses. The law, called SB 12, prohibits administering health care without parental permission unless providing, quote, life-saving care. News 88.7's Bianca Seward reports on the uncertainty surrounding the law's rollout.
School districts are now required to take action against employees who provide health services without parental consent. Districts across the state have varied interpretations of the mandate. Some school nurses have reportedly been withholding basic care, fearful of breaking the law. Cy-Fair ISD's release form tells parents the district won't provide routine health care, including, quote, first aid and injury evaluation, without consent. Conroe ISD's release similarly indicates they will not provide general first aid without permission. On Monday, the Texas Education Agency answered questions and confirmed staff can provide general caretaking without a parent's signature. Republican Texas House Representative Jeff Leach co-authored the bill. He urged employees on social media to use common sense and administer basic care. I'm Bianca Seward, News 88.7.
A 16-year-old boy has been arrested after being accused of killing his father inside his home in Pearland. The teen has been charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon and aggravated assault of a family member. He's being held in the Brazoria County Detention Center. Officers say his father was found with multiple stab wounds and was pronounced dead at the scene. I'm Alexandra Hart, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance with its Name Your Price tool, a way to see coverage options based on a driver's budget. Learn more at progressive.com or 1-800-PROGRESSIVE. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Live from the University of Houston, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
I am that person that will often say to someone on my cell phone, hold on a second, I got to find my phone. So I'm not someone who remembers things that well.
That's scary.
It's odd.
How's your mom?
Yeah.
Oh, does my mom? Oh, my God, I haven't seen her in days. No, she is fine. The reason I bring that up is last night I totally missed the space station. You two were on it. You went and saw it go over?
Full disclosure, the only reason I was on it was because Frank sent a text
to remind
that
us.
said, it's coming in 3 minutes. And so we were able to run out and see it.
We were sitting down at one of our new favorite restaurants, right, on the curb, because we can walk there, which makes it a favorite. And I told the waitress, I said, we're all going to leave the table at 7:50, and we're going to run out of the parking lot for about 8 minutes. But we haven't left. So don't think that we're running the check. Just leaving a mess.
Dine and dash.
Yeah, right. So she said, okay, no problem. And so we went out there at 7:50, and sure enough, it was spectacular.
It was so cool.
It was perfect.
I totally forgot about it. For those who are just joining us today and didn't, because for some reason chose not to listen to us yesterday, explain what happened last night.
It was the International Space Station, and they circle the globe constantly, of course. And there's even a website you can Google.
Yes, and an app.
Yeah, and an app. And you can find out when they're going to be around next. The key to this was it went right over the city from southwest to northeast. So that's a great trajectory.
And the skies were clear.
And the weather was marvelous. So, it was a win-win-win, except for Ernie, who was busy. I don't know what he was doing on his... Okay, you know what else, guys?
What else?
Talk to us.
Today's September 10th.
Yes.
But statistically, this is the peak of hurricane season. This is the most common time to see something.
Why is it so nice?
In the Atlantic Basin, there's nothing there. A few reasons that I could go into. There's been a little more dust. The tropical warmer waters are cooler than normal versus the subtropical, the ones north and south of them, are warmer, but these are cool. And, the reason we have hurricanes from a physics standpoint is to transfer heat at the equator north to the poles, right? It's like your chimney.
So it has a purpose.
It's kind of a chimney, yeah. It gets the heat from here to there. Well, physically, there's no reason for that to happen right now because those waters are warmer than the tropics are. So that's probably one reason that's not happening, and it's just a little cooler water. So Well, it's not happening. That doesn't mean it won't. We still have we have until middle of October, but certainly November 30th.
It's boding well for us.
We were all yesterday sitting outside our neighbors and just enjoying the evening. It was absolutely beautiful. Do you think that is going to continue, Frank?
I do. I was just looking at some of the dew points that are forecast, and it looks like we will stay below 70, which is always a good thing. Yeah. So it's going to be warm. Dry air is easier to cool off and easier to warm up. Like the desert gets really cold at night and then really hot during the day because dry air doesn't have a lot of water molecules in it. So that dry air, you can make that air move faster and cooler, cool it down, warm it up. So I think that we're going to see warm temperatures in the low 90s every afternoon. So watch that. But the humidity is a little lower, and so it's going to cool off nicely in the evening and have nice, wonderful mornings all the way through probably Sunday.
Yeah.
Great. What I took from that entire conversation was simply the fact that because it's so dusty in my house, I'm never going to have a hurricane in my living room.
There you go. But we want to thank you for joining us today on Hello Houston. We're going to be covering a lot coming up this hour, whether you're joining us on 88.7 or on our YouTube channel. Don't forget, you can also join the conversation at 713-440-8870. What do we have coming up today, Ernie?
Well, I was going to say also, don't forget that we're available as a podcast, too. So if you ever miss the show, you can get the podcast or the commuter cut, which is a 40-minute cut down of the 2-hour show that you can listen to on your drive home. Or if you really enjoyed us during the day and you want to hear it again, just make sure you subscribe and get our podcast. On today's show, we're going to take a look at the expansion with the Harris Health System into Herman Park. What's going on there? We're going to find out more about that. We're also going to talk about jobs in our area. We're going to talk about wine, and we're going to talk about fertility. It's a very full show today.
Sometimes those go together.
Go to
wine and fertility. We'll see how that all plays out. But a lot is going on in the world that surrounds us outside of our studio, and Celeste takes us there with the headlines.
Thanks, Ernie. Federal authorities announced Tuesday that DeCarlos Duchman Brown Jr., the suspect in the fatal stabbing of Ukrainian refugee Iryna Zarutska on a North Carolina train, has been federally charged with one count of committing an act causing death on a mass transportation system. Attorney General Pam Bondi said that the DOJ will seek the maximum penalty for Brown. President Donald Trump called for Brown Jr. to face the death penalty for the alleged murder of Zarutska. Today, President Trump made the statement on social media saying the trial for suspect DeCarlos Brown Jr. should be quick. Meanwhile, North Carolina lawmakers are calling for the removal of the judge who released Brown Jr. The suspect has had a long criminal record and a history of mental illness. One of the lawmakers, Republican Representative Tim Moore, called the killing in his home state preventable. That was on X. Moore is joined by 10 House Republicans from the state who signed a letter requesting formal proceedings to remove Magistrate Judge Teresa Stokes. What are your thoughts? Should the judge be removed? Should the president be calling for the death penalty? Now is the time to give us a call or send us a text, 713-440-8870.
I would start with this one with just the video itself is horrific. There are two versions of the video that are out there online. One is the full uncut version of the video, or at least of the moment. The family has asked that be taken down and people not see that. There is an abbreviated one that ends before the actual attack but leads up to the attack. If you feel that you must watch something about this, I would recommend that. You don't really want to see all of what actually violently happened. So that's just a warning to people. If you're out there and you think you want to see it, you may not want to.
Well, if you support the death penalty, not everyone does, but if you support the death penalty, this is kind of a classic. I don't. The word alleged just doesn't even come to mind.
Yeah, it's unprovoked.
I mean, it was unprovoked, and it was just murder. Okay. And Ernie and I were talking earlier, because it was on a train that goes from one state to another. It therefore becomes a federal crime on a
crossing state lines.
Yeah, crosses state lines on a mode of mass transportation. So it's like if you kill someone in an airplane. That's going over the United States. So it does fall under federal law. Now the President of the United States has said, let's give him the death penalty and do it quickly, which seems like an overreach to me because now the President has decided that he is judge and jury. Mm-hmm. We're not going to have a judge and jury because we have the President to tell us what we need to do when it comes to crime. That's what frightens me about this, other than my heart goes out to this woman and her family. It was just horrific.
And again, 713-440-8870. We want to hear your thoughts. What are your thoughts? Should the judge be removed? Because that is another aspect to this question. And should the president be calling for the death penalty? 713-440-8870.
Or any penalty. Should the president? What if the president said, you know what, this guy had mental issues. I think we should just put him in an institution and basically free him. Well, if he said that, would that be acceptable? Should the president be opinionated on crime?
Should he be chiming in? Is it his place to be handling that? There are courts, there are ways we address
And in that
these
way,
things.
he didn't just chime in. He said the death penalty and quick. And this person could have, and apparently does, a long history of mental illness. But he didn't call for that. You know, whenever there's as we've been talking about, Celeste, whenever there's a school shooting or a mass shooting, the go-to is, this isn't a gun issue, it's a mental health issue.
Correct.
Well, this isn't in this case, it's not a knife issue, you know.
Yeah.
It's maybe a mental health issue.
I mean, it clearly is. If you watch the video, which again, be warned,
Right.
There are different versions of the video. But if you watch it, I have not seen the full video. I have just seen the one that is cut. And it is clear. I mean, he has mental health issues. He's talking to himself. He's kind of pacing around.
His family, his mother has warned. His mother had asked that he be put away.
Right.
Right. I don't think it's necessarily fair to ask for the removal of a judge. I think in the moment, our judges are doing the best that they possibly can with the information that they have. Obviously, I find it interesting that we do have North Carolina elected officials saying this could have been preventable. When we look at these type of cases, well, how could it have been preventable? What needed to be done in that moment?
I don't know. Do you have to go through any kind of a metal detector when you get on a train? I don't ride trains in this country.
Public transport isn't necessarily.
But we had to. We rode trains in Europe, and we certainly went through, just like the airport, we went through metal detectors, and our luggage went through metal detectors. So they're keeping their trains safer than we're keeping ours. So if he's going to really get up there and posture as this was preventable, what are you doing to keep knives and guns off trains? Yeah. That would be my question.
I'll throw another wrinkle into here. Also, we were talking about online and in social media. There's been a huge conversation going on about racial inequality here and about because he was African American, she was white. News didn't cover it. Major outlets didn't cover it. The far right is saying that was because you have different justice for different information out there for different groups of people, making a question about why wasn't this story more covered. In the first, I guess, about a month of the story, there was very little attention by national and established news organizations, and most of this information was coming from online.
Well, and again, there's a text from John to that very point you're making.
Yeah.
Yes. And again,
what does he say?
I wonder how things would be different if this would have been a black woman murdered by a white man. Can you imagine the outrage in 24/7 coverage?
Again, 713-440-8870. All excellent points. We want to hear from you. Tommy from Harris County is on the line. Tommy, welcome to Hello Houston. What is your comment or question?
Yes, I would say that the judge should be removed because there's been a lot of crimes that happened where people got murdered and they let the murderer go free until people start raising sand, and then they take another look at it. I mean, that was something that was no question that they let this person out of jail. And for as Donald Trump have always talked about something that was just silly and unnecessary. Just like he said, this guy need to have the death penalty. Well, maybe their family might say, yeah, that's true. But this man got a criminal history, and he got a mental illness that he had a history of. So therefore, he ain't never got the service that he really needs, probably just because he's black. So there's a lot of people like him are running around this city right now.
Yeah. Well, and this particular person had 14 prior criminal cases as well as a history of schizophrenia.
Right.
So
Tommy,
I'm not a judge, but there seems like a lot of reasons not to let him out. But then again, our prisons are overcrowded.
Yeah. Tommy, thank you for your call and for your comments on this. It brings up a lot to think about.
It really does.
You could go so far as to say that the attempted or the supposed murderer, I don't know how to use it right because he hasn't been convicted of it, even though the evidence is the suspect. Thank you. Is he a victim of a system that didn't give him the care and the attention he needed?
I think that is a whole. I mean, that's a whole other can of worms, right?
Yeah.
We can
That's
look
why we
at
have judges and juries.
And that's why we have
you
judges and
don't have
juries.
the Bondi coming out and saying this is going to be a murder case, and the president saying we need a quick trial and give him the death penalty. That's why we have
systems and our judicial system in place.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Due process is the word I was looking for,
Yeah,
which that seems to be gone in this country for now on so many levels.
Over on our YouTube chat area, my British computer guy says this Mr. Brown chap needs the chair. I'm sure there's a lot of sentiment that believes that. I think what's so, and Celeste and I were talking about this earlier also, the fact about it was, I believe, just so random. Wrong person, wrong time. I know that there is a racial component of this story that plays into it. I do not think that he went after her because she was white. I think, and we talked about this a little bit. It may have been the fact because she was white and other people, if I'm reading the video correctly, are not white, that she looked different. And in his psychosis, seeing her as different may have been what led him to do it. But he obviously, it had nothing to do with who she was. She sat in a place where a deranged person was having a difficult time and reacted.
And to that point, Ernie, when we were talking earlier, that's exactly when you bring up, when we are looking at this, do we really think there was a racial component to it, or are we adding that racial component into it as a society?
Yeah, I think that the most, when they're talking about the racial component in social media, it's about the coverage it got after the fact.
Coverage.
That conservatives saying liberals would have jumped all over this had it been the other way, but because it's this way, liberals wanted to keep it quiet. I don't know. You brought up a point in our morning meeting today about, is it a national story, what happened here? Should it have gotten national attention? In just the questioning point of it, not making an opinion on it, but asking that question. I personally believe it is a story that does have components that touch a lot of different areas, and it's so horrific. We do cover horrific crimes. I am surprised that the major news markets were not covering this story, that I didn't see it as the lead on CNN, because I see those kind of things all the time.
Right, and but I also think that here in Houston, we work in news, and we have random acts of violence that end in murder all the time.
Right.
And so I guess the components that we're looking at, what would those components be? Or I'm asking.
Well, I think an innocent woman on a train just
getting
riding
murdered.
Getting murdered on the train.
Right,
and
he
the
didn't
fact
even try
that
to. He did it so publicly.
And the fact that there was video of it.
And there's people around.
Yeah, right, but you've got something to see, so it makes it a story that reads on air, that reads because you've got the video of it.
And she's Ukrainian. So she came to this country to escape war and gets violently murdered on a train in North Carolina.
Right.
That's part of the the whole
it.
man bites dog scenario in this.
713-440-8870. Ruth from Rice is on the line. Ruth, your thoughts?
Yeah, my concern is if you've known anyone who has lived with someone in their family who has severe mental illness and has violent tendencies, it is nigh impossible to get them the care that they need without. I mean, A, there are no facilities, and B, there's no funding for it, and C, we have laws that make it almost impossible to you can't commit someone until they have already committed a crime. This is true of women who are stalked by their partners. I mean, we cannot say that we are so worried about safety if we're not going to also pony up and provide the services that people with serious mental health issues need.
Yeah. Ruth, thank you for those comments. I think that's something we have to fold into this story, is that this is not a person that suddenly in one moment snapped and this happened. This person had a history of these mental challenges, and yet they did not get, as far as we know, the care that they needed for it, and they were out on the streets.
And
so
getting
who's
no
at fault?
empathy from the president or the attorney general.
Right.
And
Now, I don't know if you need empathy
word.
for somebody who murders someone, but you do need to understand how we got to that point and what could have, like they're all talking about the judge, what the judge could have done differently. What could the court system done? What could our system, what could our society have done differently when you're dealing with someone that faces these
Well, we always say
challenges?
in any murder, there's always a lot of victims, not just the victim.
And yeah, I think that's to Ruth's point. I think she brings up a very important aspect of the story, that people that live or have a loved one that really struggle with severe mental health, that are on the streets and struggling, what kind of support is there for them? Now, I am in no way, shape, or form condoning what this man did.
Oh, no.
And it's devastating. It is absolutely 100% devastating.
Yeah, I think we are all kind of shook by this story. I think it's a horrific story on a variety of levels. I don't know that simply saying give the death penalty to the one individual, it may bring an end to this story, but it doesn't bring an end to the problems that it's talking about.
Coming up on Hello Houston, we'll talk with Brian McLeod, the Administrative Director of Communications for Harris Health System, about the expansion of the Ben Taub Hospital. This is News 88.7. Stay with us.
With federal support gone, Houston Public Media needs a stronger foundation for the future. The Houston Public Media Resiliency Fund is our response to ensure this service remains strong, stable, and community-powered. Your gift today helps us stay on the air tomorrow and the day after that. Give now to the Resiliency Fund at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 800-364-8300.
At 6:30.
Councilmember Edward Pollard stepped up to identify funds to support public media in Houston.
Today, I'm excited to announce a contribution of $50,000 each to two pillars of our public broadcasting landscape, KTSU and Houston Public Media.
Councilman Pollard joins thousands who recognize the value of fact-based, non-biased journalism, high-quality educational content, and emergency alert communications. Learn how you can help at houstonpublicmedia.org.
Houston Public Media, in partnership with Texas Southern University, brings to you The Vibe, R&B, hip-hop, and neo-soul, music that resonates with all ages. The Vibe on 88.7 HD3 and on the Houston Public Media app.
Support comes from Smart Financial Center in Sugar Land, presenting John Cleese, 50 Years of Monty Python and the Holy Grail, Friday, September 19th. Screening is followed by an audience Q&A with Cleese. Tickets at smartfinancialcenter.com.
And now back to Hello Houston. Join the conversation. Call now, 713-440-8870, or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Harris Health System is planning a major expansion of Ben Taub Hospital, one of the region's only Level 1 trauma centers, by acquiring nearly 9 acres of land, currently part of Herman Park. The expansion, backed by a voter-approved $2.5 billion bond, would add over 100 new inpatient rooms to address rising demand. But the proposed site, though separated from the main park by Cambridge Street, is historically part of land donated to the city for park use, raising concerns from community members and preservation advocates. In fact, Harris Health System is holding a public town hall in partnership with Harris County Precinct 3 today at 6 p.m. And with us now to discuss the details is the public response, and what's next is Dr. Esmaeil Porsa, the president and CEO of Harris Health Systems. Esmaeil, Dr. Porsa, welcome to Hello Houston.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
And if you would like to join the conversation, if you have a question, you can give us a call or send us a text, 713-440-8870.
I guess I would start in this whole conversation just about the land itself, then we'll get into what the expansion means. I remember with Memorial Park that when it was ceded to the city or given over, it was with the understanding that it had to be treated in a certain way. Are there similar restrictions? Were there similar restrictions on Herman Park, and does that carry through? What needed to be altered or changed for you folks to be able to move into this area?
Yeah, so not to get into what happened previously with Memorial Park, to answer your question, yes, there have been reversionary clauses in the land. And I think the public has heard the fact that if the land was not going to be used as a park, it would need to be given back to the people who have inherited the land.
Right.
And that's the whole reason behind acquiring this land through eminent domain. Basically, what we are saying is that, granted everything that you just said and we just discussed, the reason we are doing this is to address an urgent public health necessity in terms of the additional capacity that we need, again, urgently for the Ben Taub Hospital. And, we can get into the conversation of why this piece of land is really the only operationally logical, fiscally responsible way of addressing that issue.
And just for one little added piece to it, if I understand correctly, though, you folks are also going to return 11 acres of land, correct?
Well,
how does that work?
I think what you're referring to is what's going to happen eventually to the existing Ben Taub Hospital once the new hospital is built.
Mm-hmm.
And the answer to that question remains to be discussed between Harris Health, the city, and the county. So I don't want to get ahead of those discussions because those discussions are ongoing. I was having this conversation earlier today. I mean, there's a lot of different things that can happen to the existing Ben Taub Hospital once a new hospital is erected, but those conversations are ongoing, and I don't want to get ahead of it.
So,
okay.
Dr. Porsa, so then my question becomes, what were the conversations when y'all were looking at where y'all needed to expand and build? What did those conversations look like to where y'all landed here?
Yeah, thank you for that question. That's really the essence of what is being discussed right now. So going back, and I think you just mentioned it, that in November 2023, 3 out of 4 people who voted in that general election voted to support our $2.5 billion bond. Part of that bond was $400 million earmarked toward the expansion of Ben Taub Hospital. Mm-hmm. And we knew it then because, like what I said at the beginning, and I think it was mentioned, Ben Taub is the only safety net hospital in the Texas Medical Center, one of only 2 level 1 trauma center hospitals. While the population of Harris County has almost doubled since Ben Taub opened its door in 1990, the capacity of Ben Taub Hospital has actually decreased when about a decade ago it moved from quad occupancy rooms, 4 hospital beds in every patient room, which I think everybody can agree is not an ideal situation, to double occupancy,
right.
2 patient beds in every hospital room. The problem that we are facing is the end result of that is a hospital that is routinely operating at or above capacity. Mm-hmm. I mean, over 100% capacity. How does that happen? We actually have patients in hospital beds in our hospital corridors and hallways. What does that mean is that our emergency room routinely, every day, 50%, sometimes more than 50% of the entire emergency room capacity is being taken up by patients who've been admitted to the hospital, but there is no hospital bed for them to be assigned to. So that backs up the entire operations of the hospital. People are, extra wait times in the emergency rooms and all of those things. That's to just back to your question, what has been done. We knew that we needed additional capacity. We asked for it in the bond that was passed, the $400 million, toward adding about 100 inpatient beds. Then the question was where? We thought about building on top of the existing hospital. The problem with that, a couple of things. One, operationally impossible to halt the operation of the hospital while we're building on top of it. But more importantly, Ben Taub Hospital, and this is not a secret, is currently facing a lot of infrastructure issues. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of structural issues. I think it has been in the news actually previously that every time there's heavy rain, we have plumbing issues, we have sewer backup into our patient care areas, into our pharmacy areas. We routinely have to close down different areas of the hospital. But in addition to that, there are some structural issues. So to spend $400 million of taxpayer money building on top of a structure that it's very quickly approaching its end of useful life is really not a fiscally responsible approach. And when you look at the footprint of Ben Taub Hospital, there's really not enough land on the existing footprint to allow for this to happen. So the only option is the land that is immediately across our existing emergency room, which again is separated from Herman Park by Cambridge Street. Creating that patient tower on that piece of land will do several things. One, we can do it while the hospital continues operations. We can actually connect that hospital through a sky bridge to the existing Ben Taub Hospital, making everything that Ben Taub Hospital has to offer in terms of emergency room, operating room, laboratory services, radiology, specialty services, you name it. Make all of that available to the future tower, again, as the first phase, first step into the eventual replacement of the entire Ben Taub Hospital. That was a long answer to your question.
I just want to bring up one point so people understand, too, for thinking, oh, well, it's the medical center. There's lots of hospitals there. There is a distinction because you are a trauma center that people have to be brought there in the case of trauma. And therefore, it's not as easy as saying, we'll take them to other hospitals if you guys are full.
You're exactly right. And we are only one of 2 level 1 trauma hospitals in the entirety, not just Texas Medical Center, but the entirety of the state of Houston and Harris County. With a county of a population of 5 million, when you ask people, when you look around the cities across the United States, this county, this city needs at least 4, if not 5, level 1 trauma hospitals. We only have 2. They're basically attached to each other, Ben Taub Memorial Hermann. Because of that, and to your point, both hospitals are continuously on diversion. So when somebody is a victim of a trauma, a fall, car accident, gunshot wound, stabbing wound, they are brought to a level 1 trauma hospital. When and if we are faced in a situation because of the overcrowding, because of the capacity issue, because of the infrastructure issues, if Ben Taub Hospital is not able to deliver on the promise of providing life-saving care in a timely manner to all Houstonians, and for that matter, all the surrounding counties, and again, in a timely manner, the entire population suffers, not just the indigent.
I get it. I looked at the map. I think that is about the only place you can go into that park area. Across the street from Cambridge is the golf course. Then there's the zoo. Then there's Herman Park where everybody goes and really enjoys. So this is sort of a ancillary part of the park. But when you say eminent domain, the descendants of the people who donated this, do they at least get paid some money while you seize their property?
Yes, they do.
So are they okay with that?
Some of whom I'm sure will not be okay with that, just for principle of it, and some I'm sure will be. But all of that is going to be worked out.
You can't expect, I mean, this is my opinion. I don't think you can expect when you donate land for the city to be a park years and years and years ago to know that we're going to be a county of 4 million people in a matter of decades. I mean, it's hard to plan for that kind of expansion. And you try to carve out what you can, but it was voted for. And you're right. This is one of 2 hospitals that do what you do.
That is correct.
So we need you as much as we need parks.
And that's exactly right. And I don't want to take anything away from the people who have inherited this piece of land and their feelings and emotions. I cannot take anything away from that. But really, really important, the bottom line is that the reason we are doing this, and you just pointed to that, is that it's not because we can do it. We have to do it to address, again, the urgent public health necessity that is upon us. And, I was having this conversation yesterday at the Commissioner's Court. The reliance on our services, Harris Health Services, Ben Taub Hospital specifically, is only going to grow, considering the changes in politics and healthcare financing and everything else that is upon us. The number of people currently, 1 out of 4 people in Harris County, City of Houston, are uninsured. That number, unfortunately, is only going to grow. So that means that reliance on our services is only going to increase, not decrease.
Which, Dr. Porsa, you're talking about the urgent public health need. You're looking at how uninsured. Earlier in the show, we were talking about extreme mental health. And from what I understand, Ben Taub is one of the hospitals who actually offers emergency psychiatric care. Talk to us about that and elaborate, because I don't think people fully understand when we talk about that care, why Ben Taub is unique to that.
Yeah, thank you for that. So a lot of hospitals, and we have 2 hospitals. Ben Taub is a level 1 trauma hospital. LBJ is a level 3 trauma hospital. Ben Taub Hospital, to your point, is our only hospital that provides emergency and inpatient psychiatric services, and one of very few hospitals in the county that does that. So in addition to being a level 1 trauma hospital, in addition to being a safety net hospital providing care to more than 1 million uninsured in Harris County, city of Houston. It is one of very few hospitals that also provides emergency psychiatric services and inpatient psychiatric beds. I heard your previous dialogue about the unfortunate event that happened with the stabbing murder. Mm-hmm. We at Ben Taub Hospital are one of the locations where when folks are identified as having an acute behavioral health issues, one of their first stops is Ben Taub Hospital.
Mm-hmm. So what's the next plan when you outgrow this? Because you're not going to take that golf course.
No.
So you're going to have to go south into the Harris County warehouse or something?
No, so the idea is doing what we are doing currently on the LBJ campus, on the Ben Taub campus. So for you and others who may not be aware of this, we are currently almost halfway through the construction of a level 1 trauma capable hospital on the LBJ campus, which would be the first level 1 trauma hospital outside of the Texas Medical Center, the third of its kind in Harris County. We are able to do that while the existing hospital operates because we have land to do it. So the idea is to create a situation, thinking into the future, once the new hospital is built on, God willing, we are able to maneuver through the eminent domain and take ownership of this land. Create a situation, to your point, that when the next phase of expansion is going to happen, we will be able to do it on site and not be put in the situation that we are facing today. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, I'm sure there were many in the 80s when this hospital was being built, that was not put into equation as to when the hospital needs to expand, what is going to happen.
How tall are you going to go?
With
the new one?
Yeah, we don't have a plan on that yet because we cannot plan on it until we have legal ownership of the land. As a public entity, all of our procurement has to go through the county. For that to happen, we need to have legal ownership of the land so we can actually engage with a design entity, and then I'll be able to answer that question.
How would you all get the legal ownership of the land? Where are y'all at within that process?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. That is really important question because unfortunately there have been some misinformation, bad information out there that we're going to take ownership of the land and the people who have inherited this piece of land are not going to know about it and all that, and that is just absolutely not true. The acquiring of a land through eminent domain is a very special legal process. And there are very, very specific steps that have to be followed exactly according to the law. My understanding is that Chapter 42 of the Texas Parks and Wildlife, I shouldn't even be saying that. But it is very prescribed exactly what is supposed to happen, i.e., starting with the issuing of a letter of public necessity to the city, issuing of the public notice in the Houston Chronicles, which we did prior to the public hearing, followed by the public hearing at our board, followed by a passing of a resolution to pull the trigger on the eminent domain process, which, again, God willing, will happen at the end of this month by Harris Health Board. It is only after that step is when the folks who have inherited this piece of land, and there are several pieces of land, who have either a reversionary right or a ownership right to this land, are going to be formally and legally notified by another entity that we have engaged who do this for a living. This is not Dr. Porsa Googling who are the people who have inherited this piece of land and calling them up. Right. There is a legal process for this. Once all that has happened, so let's say at the end of September, my board passes a resolution, pulls that trigger. The item is then referred to the Harris County Commissioner's Court. Harris County does what Harris County is going to do. It is then going to be referred to the City of Houston, and City of Houston is going to do what it's going to do. But between the months of October and November of this year, once my board passes that resolution, everybody who has any right to this piece of land will be legally and formally notified of this process. Some people obviously already know about it because it's in the news, and it is a good thing that it's in the news. It has always been my hope, my purpose, my goal for this to be out in the open, and I'm glad that it is. but there's a formal way of doing this to make sure that we follow the letter of the law. So when that happens, all those things, we don't anticipate to take legal ownership of this piece of land. And Frank, you mentioned the financial aspect of this. There is going to be conversation about the true market value of this piece of land.
I would think millions.
It will be millions. It will be millions, and that is what Harris Health is going to have to pay to take ownership of this land.
Wow.
We anticipate all of these legal processes taking whatever they're going to take. Sometime next year, probably middle of next year, maybe toward the end of next year, we can take legal ownership of this land, and that's when we can actually start the design process. However, that is not, unfortunately, the end of the process, because apparently after that there's still back and forth legal issues with the people some people are going to be happy with whatever they're offered. They're going to take their money and go their way. Some people are going to fight it for different reasons. That is going to be a multi-year process that is going to happen, but that does not prevent Harris Health from taking legal ownership of the land so we can start the process.
What do you say to folks who fear that once you are successful in this, if you are successful, that's opening a new can of worms that other hospitals, other entities are going to start picking away at that park, and that once this is approved, it's a free-for-all? Yeah. What do you say to them? Yes. And granted, you have talked about how complicated it actually is to do all that.
So I would say that we are a safety net hospital. We were created as a special hospital district through the votes of folks in Harris County. As a matter of fact, January 1 of 2026, coming up in a few months, is our 60th year anniversary. As a governmental entity, we have been granted with the right and the opportunity and the power of eminent domain. Other hospitals do not have that power. So this is not opening a can of worms and a free-for-all so other hospitals can do the same thing. That's not how it happens. And we have no intention, and this is just Dr. Porsa's word. I'm not sure if it means anything. But this is not us taking care of 9 acres of Herman Park land across Herman Park and then later on saying that, well, you know what? We would like to take on the other 400 acres of Herman Park. That is not what's being discussed. That is not the idea. That is not the direction we're going. This is, again, we're only doing this because we have to in order to address the very urgent, the very real public health necessity that we're currently being faced with.
Dr. Esmaeil Porsa, President and CEO of Harris Health Systems. Dr. Porsa, thank you so much for joining us today on Hello Houston.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much. I'm a big fan.
Thank you. Coming up, we'll talk to the owners of Duchman Wine. Stay with us as Hello Houston continues.
Federal funding for public media has been cut. In response, we're creating Houston Public Media's Resiliency Fund. Donations made toward the fund will directly counter the loss of the $2.2 million in federal funds that were cut annually and strengthen our station's foundation to provide our services into the future. Contributing to this fund is easy and quick and makes all the difference to our station. Help build the Resiliency Fund now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
Favorite podcast platforms.
I'm Jesse Thorne. You want some real, insightful conversations about where art comes from? Well, Bullseye has you covered, as long as you don't mind a little bit of ridiculousness.
Y'all was like really judging me though.
They sniffed it out. They sniffed out that I was weird.
I was like, I don't know where I'm gonna sit, just like in the movies.
Listen, learn, laugh. Bullseye from Maximum Fun and NPR.
Bullseye, Thursdays at 9 p.m. on News 88.7.
On Fresh Air, you'll hear conversations with entertaining people like Nancy Cartwright, the voice of Bart Simpson.
I gave him one take, one sound, one voice, and that was it. Blah, 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 blah. And Matt, his eyebrows went up, his tongue came out of his mouth. He's like, oh my God, that's him, that's Bart, that's him. You got the part.
The most interesting people in show business tell their stories on Fresh Air.
Fresh Air, weekdays at 8 p.m. on News 88.7.
We know you value Houston Public Media. That's why you're listening right now
Take the next steps and become a new member of the station you rely on. Every gift makes a difference, and what matters most right now is supporting the station that brings you the news and information you rely on. It only takes a few minutes to make a big difference. Join as a new member today at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887.
And now back to Hello Houston. Join the conversation. Call now, 713-440-8870, or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
All right, the Duchman family winery, located in the Texas Hill Country, began with the goal of bringing world-class winemaking to the region. Founded in 2004 by doctors Lisa and Stan Duchman, the winery has since become one of the top wine destinations in the state of Texas. To tell us more about the Duchman family winery, we're joined by one of its founders, Stan Duchman. Stan, welcome to Hello Houston.
Well, thank you, and hello, Houston.
So tell us, are you and Lisa from Texas?
No, I'm originally from Iowa, and Lisa's originally from Kansas.
And so how did you end up here?
Lisa came to the University of Houston for optometry school, and I came down here to Baylor for internship, residency, fellowship.
Yeah. And what sort of medicine do you practice?
Cardiology.
Okay, so we have a heart doctor and an eye doctor.
Yes.
How'd we get into being a wine doctor?
Insanity.
No, tell me, almost 20 years ago, somebody said to somebody else over a nice glass of wine in some restaurant somewhere, we should do this as a hobby.
So what actually happened is that our neighbor was Damien Mendola.
Oh.
And Damien, while he was working on the cookbook with Johnny,
Yeah.
Lisa was just opened her practice and I was in training, so neither one of us were ever home. And so he would drop off food that was left over from the cookbook in a cooler and leave a little note in there. And so I enjoyed cooking a lot. Had I not got accepted to medical school, I was going to go to CIA. That was my second.
Culinary Institute of America.
Exactly, yes. And so I'd kind of been dabbling with learning about wines. And so I started learning more about wines, and I would return the favor to Damien with wines. And when they sold the Carrabba's chain, Damien said, I bought this land out in the Hill Country. Let's do a winery. To which I respectfully said, no, thank you. No. We said no several times. And then he can be convincing. He's an affable soul. And he convinced us into doing it. So we became partners, and we started the project in 2004, and we finished the winery in 2006, the restaurant next door, Lisina, in 2007. And then Damien and Trina had an opportunity to do something with his markets there in Austin. So he had to get out of the alcohol license. And so then we split. We took the winery, they took the restaurant, and then we moved on from there. And we had to rebrand to Duchman just because it was impossible to sell a restaurateur's name wine to any of the restaurants around the state. So the actual name change took place in 2009.
I laugh because I know this story from the opposite point of view. I heard it from Damien. So when you said, I was like, oh, that's how it all connected through. It is a beautiful winery, though.
Thank you. Yes.
And it has gotten recognized nationally for the beauty.
It has, yes. We've won the label in 2010. Lisa's label won the Label of the Year. Uh-huh. And the wines have won multiple awards. And, Condé Nast, Traveler Destinations, all those things. We've been very fortunate.
Named you as one of America's most picturesque wineries.
That's right. Yeah.
But I want to go back to the point whenever they were buying land in the Hill Country. Was there any research that went into, what does that look like when you're looking at buying land and then to turn it into a vineyard in Texas? How do you know where to plant? What is good in regards to climate?
Well, that's a really good question.
And, Thank you, Doctor.
That's the theme of the hour. And when they bought the land, there was an area that was on a flat area right next to Onion Creek. That, the one thing nice about the Austin area is that, multiple things are nice about the Austin area, but one of the particular things is there's so much limestone. So there's good runoff for the water, and it's dry. The problem with the Hill Country, and none of our grapes, we're the largest Texas grape winery in Texas, and none of our grapes any longer come from the Hill Country. Everything comes from the High Plains AVA out west of Lubbock. And the reason is because the humidity, even though we think it's not humid relative to Houston, It's still pretty humid, and at night it doesn't get cool. it gets dark, but it doesn't get cool. And the photosynthetic process of the grapes really need that cool time period in order to kind of re-energize so that the next day it can put its energies into the sugar and the development of the grapes to make the wine.
Like I was saying earlier, dry air is easy to heat up, easy to cool down.
Right.
So, and in fact, one of our guests yesterday who'd written a book called Killer Vintage was talking about being in the high plains and being in the wine business out there. So that brings me to Celeste's question. So all of your grapes come from there, from the high plains. Any from like Argentina, for any Malbecs or any from Italy, just all high plains. It's all a Texas. It's all a Texas-made wine.
We have never had any other grapes come from outside of the state of Texas at our winery.
You say that
I
like
love that.
We're the
you
only
say that
one.
like a
Is it
Texas
proud?
waving flag.
Very
Definitely.
Only one.
So you're telling definitely not from California.
None.
None.
Zero.
So, which also is very interesting, right? Because I understand when you go to California in the Napa, Sonoma Valley areas, a lot of times they'll talk about the grapes will be the different times of year, but also if they had a wildfires or what affects Texas grapes or wines? What type of climate? Like, do hurricanes affect the way the wine is going to taste?
What's a good year and a bad year in Texas?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, a bad year in Texas is, out in the high plains AVA, the problem is hail in the spring. A frost in the spring comes late. And the other side of that is after harvest, unless there's some problem with mildew or mold or something, which can be taken care of. But after harvest, the problem is that in 2019, I believe, don't quote me on that date, weatherman, but
weatherman.
It went from 70 some degrees out west of Lubbock to like 12 degrees.
Okay.
That day, and the vines had not gone dormant yet, and we lost all the Vermentino, and the others took a big hit, but the Vermentino was gone, and so we were 3 years without Vermentino, and that's kind of the one that put us on the map. So that was a difficult time period for the winery, and then of course there's all kinds of insects and bug problems and things like that you're going to have in the hill country, even more so. Because of the climate, it's constantly a bit of a battle, and we try to be as natural in that process as possible. But sometimes you have to do some things to save the crop.
Yeah, you talk about 3 years. The extended aging program that you go through with your wines, different than a lot of folks, right?
Yes, well, because we have mostly Italian varietals. Those are the ones that have kind of done really well in Texas. The Aglianico is a tannic wine, and it needs time to soften. And so the Aglianico, we've spent a lot of time letting those wines age before we release them. We usually try to give them at least 3 or 4 years, and if we can get 5, that's even better. The white wines, the Vermentino, the Viognier, and the Roussanne, we release them within 1 year to 2 years. And the Rosé the same, Montepulciano a few years.
So you are the perfect person to ask, given that you're a heart doctor and a winemaker. Is wine really good for the heart? Because my mama sure thought so.
Well, I mean, if I answer that from a medical perspective, I have to say, Frank, you have to do that, in moderation, of course.
Right.
Yes, and we all should. There's all sorts of epidemiological data that would suggest that wine is fairly healthy, given in moderation. But has there been any really correct studies done from a medical perspective where they did a blinded trial? Some people drank, some people didn't. They took into account their genetics and this and that. No, it's impossible. But I sure think it's good for the heart.
Which, Dr. Duchman, it went from being somewhat of a hobby for you, and now you're full-fledged. You have a winery. You're doing this. Do you still have a passion for it? Do you love it even more now, or are you kind of like I peeked behind the curtain and saw how the sausage was made?
Oh no! We still love it. It's a challenge, and it's humbling.
Sure.
Every year, it's a different change, a different thoughts. The wines are different. It's really an interesting business. It's a big challenge in Texas. I think that's the one thing that we didn't really consider going into it, in the sense that a lot of people just don't consider Texas wines serious wines, even though we're starting to get there. We're starting to get a reputation. It's more difficult to sell.
So does Lisa still practice medicine, or is she full?
She sold her optometry practice. She keeps her license current and fills in for people on occasion just for fun.
And you still are a full-time doctor?
Full-time cardiologist. cardiologist.
You're busy.
I'm a little busy.
Dr. Stanley and Dr. Lisa Duchman, who's sitting right outside our studio, are the founders and proprietors of the Duchman Family Winery. Stanley, thank you so much for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Thank you very much.
Coming up, we'll continue diving into today's top stories. Stay with us for the second hour of Hello Houston.
Stay tuned. There's more Hello Houston on the way with Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at houstonpublicmedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Support comes from GenPro, a Houston-based home generator service providing power to homes during unexpected outages, helping with connectivity and productivity. More information is available at genpro.com.
Nice day today. Lots of sun. We'll get up to around 93 degrees. Currently, it's 85. This is your NPR station, KUHF, Houston. News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston.
Just ahead on this hour of Hello Houston, we'll continue diving into the top stories of the day, including Harris County Judge Lina Hidalgo walking out on Commissioner's Court during a county budget meeting. I'm Ernie Manous.
And I'm Frank Billingsley. We'll also discuss Houston's job market with Craig Rhodes, Senior Vice President of Economic Development at the Greater Houston Partnership.
And I'm Celeste Diaz-Sherman. Plus, we'll also discuss strategic fertility solutions with Rosanne Austin, founder of the Fearlessly Fertile Method.
And we want to hear from you. Give us a call or text us at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. You can also watch us on YouTube by going to hellohouston.org and clicking on the big orange banner.
Hello Houston continues right after the news from NPR and News 88.7.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Israel is defending its airstrike targeting Hamas leaders in Qatar. This follows international condemnation and additional criticism from President Trump. NPR's Daniel Estrin reports from Tel Aviv. Hamas says none of its senior leaders was killed in the strike.
Israel's defense minister said Israel would act against its enemies in any place and warned Hamas leaders to disarm and release hostages or else they'd be killed and Gaza will be destroyed. Israel's military today struck a tower near the Gaza City seaport. Israeli ambassador to the U.S., Yechiel Leiter, told Fox News Israel would continue to target Hamas leaders because of the October 7th, 2023 attack.
Hamas terrorists are on notice. They are going to be eliminated.
Hamas says the strike came just as its leaders were meeting to discuss a U.S. ceasefire proposal for Gaza. President Trump says he's very unhappy about Israel's strike in Qatar, a U.S. ally. France and the U.K. also condemned the strike. Daniel Estrin, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
3 former senior FBI officials are suing the Trump administration, arguing they were fired for refusing to demonstrate loyalty to the president. NPR's Carrie Johnson reports the men were dismissed before they could collect retirement benefits.
The 3 officials fired last month had put in a combined 60 years of public service, helping rescue hostages, prevent terrorist attacks, and dismantle street gangs. Brian Driscoll won awards for valor and briefly led the entire FBI this year before he was dismissed by new director Kash Patel in August. The lawsuit describes Patel as struggling to please the White House and willing to dismiss anyone who angered Trump without any due process. Court papers describe internal communications that portray Patel and his deputy Dan Bongino as more interested in social media than in upholding the FBI's national security mission. Carrie Johnson, NPR News, Washington.
The administration is out with more than 100 recommendations on improving children's health. NPR's Maria Godoy says it's a follow-up to a May report that outlined what the government identified as the drivers of chronic health conditions affecting minors.
This report serves up a smorgasbord of action items that the administration says should be implemented to increase the health of children, from reinstating the presidential fitness test in schools to promoting breastfeeding. Now, I'd say a hefty portion of the recommendations deal with nutrition, research, and education for kids, but it also calls for studying the root causes of autism and for creating what it calls a new vaccine framework.
That's NPR's Maria Godoy reporting. At last check on Wall Street, the Dow is down 177 points. It's NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Alexandra Hart. Governor Greg Abbott today signed an executive order regulating THC products in Texas, namely banning the sale of those products to anyone under the age of 21. The move comes after the Texas legislature failed to pass measures regulating or banning THC during the two previous special sessions, a priority of Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. Harris County Judge Lina Hidalgo continues to have a strained relationship on Commissioner's Court. She grew increasingly frustrated during yesterday's 9-hour-long budget meeting, calling out colleagues who refused to support funding for various children's programs.
I don't know in what world we decided to just hate on the children, but okay, so this will not advance.
Commissioners were voting on proposals as they tried to close a budget deficit of more than $200 million. Hidalgo's frustration eventually led her to walking out of the meeting.
I don't understand. So I'm going to leave it, Commissioner Ellis, to you. And I'll just, again, for the record, colleagues, I don't know what we're doing here for not standing up for children. Shame on you.
It was the second time Hidalgo walked out during the meeting, but this time she did not return. A final vote on the budget will take place next week. U.S. Navy Rear Admiral John Hewitt joined Houston Mayor John Whitmire downtown Tuesday as the city plans to welcome more than 1,000 sailors as part of Houston's first ever Fleet Week. Over Veterans Day in November, active duty military ships, U.S. Navy sailors, Marines, and members of the U.S. Coast Guard will be docked at Bayport near LaPorte. Whitmire said the event will offer a unique opportunity for the city.
It's going to be monumental. It's our first time to have Fleet Week in the state of Texas. The Rear Admiral Hewitt has worked with my team at City Hall to make this an experience for all Houstonians. We want to thank the sailors and the Coast Guard and the Marines, all the branches that are going to be participating. We want them to have a great Houston experience.
This year's Fleet Week will also coincide with the 250th anniversaries of both the U.S. Navy and Marine Corps. I'm Alexandra Hart, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Charles Schwab, offering investors choices like full-service wealth management, advice, investing, and trading on Thinkorswim. Learn more at schwab.com. And from the Doris Duke Foundation.
Live from Houston Public Media and News 88.7, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now, Hello Houston with Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
It is September 10th.
I got a hat out of the last guest.
You did get a hat. You're very proud of your hat. You're wearing it.
Well, it's my color. Blue is my color.
Is blue your signature color?
I love blue.
If you'd like to see Frank wearing his hat, you can easily go to YouTube and you can watch us. We stream live there every day, and we also archive all of our programs right there on the YouTube channel. Just look for Houston Public Media. You can find us there or continue to listen to us however you do, be it on the radio or as our what's it called? Why is my brain going?
Our podcast?
Podcast, thank you. I couldn't remember. If you were watching, you could have seen me wiggle my fingers at the camera. Today is National TV Dinner Day.
Really?
When was the last time you had a TV dinner?
You know Tucker Carlson on Fox.
I don't know him, but I know him.
Well, you know, his I think it was his stepfather was the Carlson frozen food TV dinner guy.
Really?
Yes. Really? Yeah, so Tucker came from from the TV dinner world.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's so many frozen things you can heat up today, but the traditional TV dinner and the little tray with the three little four compartments.
They were so fun.
Oh, when they first came out, that was so cool. Well, I don't know when they first came out. How old am I?
I do. I remember.
Well, I think that the TV dinner was very revolutionary for a lot of women during that time.
Yes.
The microwave was just coming out.
Oh, no, it was long before the microwave. This is in your oven.
Oh,
you
in your
had to heat up
oven.
the
Okay,
oven.
but still,
You're
I
so
think there was
young.
TV trays.
TV
Remember TV
trays in front of
TV
the-
dinners, and the TV. The TVs. That's when I fell in love with TV.
There you go. But again, we want to thank you for joining us today on Hello Houston, whether you are tuning in on your radio, 88.7, or you're watching us on YouTube. Don't forget, you can also head to Instagram and go to hellohouston.show and follow us.
Perfect.
Yes.
All right, we have a lot to talk about this hour. We're going to meet with Craig Rhodes, Senior Vice President of Economic Development in the Greater Houston Partnership, and have a few headlines to get going. Go ahead.
That's right. Harris County Judge Lina Hidalgo walked out of Commissioner's Court on Tuesday as county leaders discussed looming budget decisions. When talks of exemptions from a hiring freeze arose, Hidalgo closed her laptop and stood up from her seat and left.
All right.
I move that we take a bathroom break, please. Can we take a 5-minute break?
I'm gonna let you continue with the court. I don't want to be a part of this nonsense. All right, thank you.
A short time later, when discussions about child care programs came up, Hidalgo again stood up from her seat when there wasn't agreement.
We seem to be totally immune to not supporting and, in fact, harming our children. I don't understand. So I'm gonna leave it, Commissioner Ellis, to you. And I'll just, again, for the record, colleagues, I don't know what we're doing here for not standing up for children. Shame on you.
Following Hidalgo's exit, everyone took a break. After the break, Hidalgo returned to her seat and Commissioner's Court continued. Hidalgo then left the room while other commissioners took a presentation on permitting fee recovery. Tuesday's tensions was the latest in clashes between Hidalgo and Commissioners Leslie Briones, Adrian Garcia, and Tom Ramsey over work on the county's budget. A couple of weeks ago, Hidalgo claimed Harris County was facing a $220 million deficit, while other commissioners believed the budget would be either balanced or about $50 million in the red. A final vote on the budget is scheduled for September 18th. What are your thoughts on Hidalgo's behavior? Is she fighting strong for her causes or impeding progress? Now is the time to chime in. You can call or text 713-440-8870.
Over on YouTube already, my British computer guy says Judge Hidalgo is showing how immature she is. We really need someone level-headed. You can't just throw a wobbly when you don't get your own way. Very unprofessional. I think the behavior is something we do need to be aware of and pay attention to. But I remember the old saying, step back from a situation. Remember the old stop, count to 10 before you react? Was she doing that? Was that in some way a healthy way to handle it? Avoiding getting into a big fight, stepping out. She did return.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Then she stepped out again.
And then she did return.
Yeah. So remember Khrushchev banging his shoe on the table?
Yeah. She could have banged her shoe.
Yeah. So she didn't get ugly about anything. She just said, look, this is not what I'm here to do. I think this is nonsense. Maybe she felt like it was the dog chasing its own tail. And she said, I'm going to take a break here.
I think it's kind of silly. I'm just going to be honest. And I think Lina Hidalgo has shown leadership in different times for Harris County. I think she has shown up for the county in many ways. In most recent, this particular situation that we're discussing, I think it's, come on, like you need to be moving as a leader. You need to be moving things forward and getting up. If you're having a disagreement, I mean, how would that look if on the show or whatever, I just decided to get up and walk out?
I'm taking my water and going home.
Come on.
Yeah.
Come on. I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things where she's put in that position to be able to garner the alignment. We need alignment. This decision, how we're going to balance the budget, is critical.
It's
it
her
needs
job.
to
It's what she
happen.
was chosen to do, and you have to do the work that you are, in a sense, hired to do. I will say, and I'm not taking a side on this, but I can understand because these are public work meetings. It's not like we have meetings off when we're not on air. If everything that happened on our show happened right here in the studio, live on air, it would have different nuance to it than when we're on the air. And I mean, there have been times where I've been in a meeting where I get frustrated, not necessarily on this show, and I've thought, you know what, it's best for me to step out of the situation and then come back and continue. And I think she did that in this situation. Her meetings are public. People are watching them meet. So that's all I have to say.
They don't meet behind closed doors.
Right.
They can,
but they were meeting publicly, but they were having a work meeting. She was, and we are just speculating here. We don't know exactly what was going on in her head. We don't know all the nuance of it. We don't know what happened behind the scenes. We just know what we've seen.
She was frustrated.
She was obviously frustrated, but she has shown some behavior that has brought into question her choices when she brought all the children in to when she was talking about the children credits, the finance stuff she was talking about with that, and that penny tax issue she had brought up that she was on our show to talk about. And now they've questioned her bringing in those kids and then the holding up the signs, the erratic behavior. But is it passion that's being misconstrued as erratic behavior?
But this is the thing, is I don't know if it's necessarily calling it erratic behavior, but I do think that we have had Commissioner Leslie Briones on Hello Houston. We have had Commissioner Adrian Garcia. In fact, he was one of the first guests that we had.
Rodney Ellis.
We've had Commissioner Ellis on. We've had Judge Lina Hidalgo on. And so every time we sit and we talk to our commissioners within Harris County, they all have very good points. And so what my thought is, as the judge, given the fact that there are 4 positions and you are the judge, you set the precedence, you set the tone of the meeting. And the way I see it is, again, I think Judge Hidalgo has served Harris County in some ways an excellent leader in many ways when it came to COVID. And I know that might be controversial itself, but I do think that she has shown leadership capabilities. And I wonder why we're not being able to show those same leadership capabilities during these meetings on a budget deficit, which then makes me think she's not getting her way. And so just to get up feels a little tantrumy to me.
Maybe. And what do you think?
Again,
713-440-8870. We have Alton on the line from Northwest Houston. Welcome to Hello Houston, Alton. What are you thinking?
Hey, Frank. I think Judge Hidalgo is one of the most honest, hardworking politicians we have out there, and especially in the country, and I fully support her. She's always thinking about the good of the people, feeding the children, taking care of the homeless, and she errs on the side of that rather than the greedy agenda of the MAGAs. That's my opinion. She's one of the best politicians out there, and I fully support her.
Alton, before we let you go, I'm just curious, your thought on her deciding to step out of a meeting. Is that appropriate or inappropriate, do you think, if you're in that kind of a position?
I think it's fine to take some time to cool off. I can understand with so many. I worked for Harris County as a customer service rep for Harris County Toll Road Authority for 7.5 years, and I know what Harris County's like. And I've been seeing what they're doing to her, what the other side is doing to her, accusing her of. Harris County is it's an outfit where you owe your soul to the company store, and they are ruthless if they don't like you, and the MAGA side is trying to destroy her, and she's standing strong. I don't blame her for getting upset. I think she handled herself well, and I think she's using a righteous anger trying to protect children and the homeless. That's more important on the budget than a lot of these other things that Republicans deem important. I'm sorry.
Alton, thank you for your opinion on the matter. If you have a thought, comment you want to share with us, 713-440-8870.
We also did earlier, we also have a call from Barbara from Oak Forest. Barbara, what's on your mind?
Well, I'm just calling to say that I think Lina Hidalgo has shown wonderful leadership and was a real saving grace during all the time of the COVID era, and that she is a person dedicated to enriching the community and supporting the people. And I think, as I find it difficult to see the decisions that are made about cutting programs or not entertaining programs for children and for people in the community, that is very frustrating. But sometimes when you're in a meeting and it's descended to the point where people are simply adamant and bickering, maybe you should be the one who says, now we take a break. Then we come back with a calmer mind and a better attitude and handle this discussion more intelligently. So I don't find any criticism on Lina Hidalgo.
Okay,
Barbara,
thanks,
thank
Barbara.
you
for that. Yes. We also had some messages come in.
Yeah.
Yes, we did
YouTube.
have some YouTube comments.
One from Dark One. When she first started her job, she seemed confident. Don't know what the heck happened in the last couple of years. That's his opinion, not mine. Also, someone said, I voted straight Democrat last election, except for Hidalgo. This is exactly the reason I did. But Queen of Rice from YouTube says, I think it would be fine if you walked out, especially if something ridiculous was said to you, because hopefully whatever or whoever upset you would reflect on it. It's a protest to draw attention.
It's interesting. We're curious what you think about not just what happened, but the issue they were discussing about how do you move forward when there's a disagreement in work? What happens if it is in the public eye? Give us your thoughts, 713-440-8870.
All right, shall we move on?
We can, if I can find my script.
I know, you looked at it, I was like, okay.
Last week's sweeping immigration raid on a Hyundai facility in Georgia could spell trouble for other companies as President Donald Trump cracks down on illegal immigration on a larger scale. This happened just outside of Savannah. This was a huge 500 people that were arrested by ICE. The DHS said the arrested workers, most of whom were Korean, by the way, were employed by contractors or subcontractors. So this was a Hyundai company. They had brought over these people to help train Americans, which can take 2 and 3 years to train them on certain parts of the Hyundai facility that was being made. Mm-hmm. President Trump said they were here illegally, although I've read that they were here on B-1 visas. Their lawyers, who they have gotten, have said that they were going to be here for anywhere from 2 weeks to maybe 6 weeks. That was it. It was a temporary visa. Come over, help us get this thing going. And suddenly there's this big raid. South Korea sent a charter jet over to pick them up and take them home. Mm-hmm. But they have, South Korea needs our help defending themselves against North Korea. So there's not much they can do other than say, you were wrong, please don't do that again. Mm-hmm. But Donald Trump is taking the stance that he was right, these were illegal people, and this is just a sign of what's to come. What do you think? How will this impact other companies? What are your thoughts on this raid? 713-440-8870.
I think it's become such a charged subject that it's hard to talk about this anymore without it getting so
polarizing.
Yeah, polarizing, but also extreme in everything. And we have situations where people can't say we did something wrong, cannot admit a mistake. If these folks were, as we understand it, here legally to do this work,
right.
It just, what is going on?
Well, and Trump made the comment, the Hyundai, for instance, needs to hire American workers to do this.
Okay, fine.
But they don't know how to do it. That's why these people were here, to train them.
Right.
And this training that happens in a lot. American companies will go to foreign countries to show them how to work whatever.
Certain jobs.
And so it's a give and take. But there is such a focus on, if anyone's here remotely without the correct papers, we're going to arrest them.
Right. And again, we use the word overreach, and we were looking at, should the president be calling for the death penalty for a crime that happened? Should the president be calling for who employs what and who and where and when and how on major corporations?
Right. I think the difference being, as long as if there are rules and there are laws and they are being met, why are we interfering? If you have a problem with that kind of rule or law, change the rule or law and then move forward with it. But these folks, if in fact they were here legally doing, now it doesn't mean that they were citizens. They weren't. They were here to do a job.
But
what does this story send, though, to other industry, to other companies in other countries about coming here and working here? Are they worried they're going to face these same things? So more and more we become isolationists and cut off from the rest of the world.
Well, my fear is that this is a way for the administration to say, look, we arrested thousands of people for this. We have done our job against immigration. All these arrests that we've made. They don't mention how many of those arrests were not legal arrests, how many of those arrests were unnecessary, how many of them were against innocent people. They just have a number that they can poll with, and they can run elections on and say, this is how many people we have arrested or sent out of the country, because that's what we were elected to do.
Yeah.
But never mind as you said, your favorite word, never mind the nuance of all of that.
Right. 713-440-8870. Let us know what you think.
We do have a couple of calls on the line. Earlier in the hour, we were talking about Harris County Judge Lina Hidalgo, who walked out of Commissioner's Court on Tuesday as county leaders discuss looming budget decisions. We do have a call from Scott from the Med Center on this topic. Scott, welcome to Hello Houston. What are your thoughts or questions?
Thank you very much. I think, if Judge Hidalgo has a beef, she needs to explain it better. Walking out of the meeting is fine if you need to take a breath. Walking out of the meeting is fine if you want to make a point. But she's had a couple of chances here. She wanted to bring kids in front of the commission, and now she's making this sort of, appeal to us to pay attention because she's walking out. But she's not giving us the information that we need to understand what is happening to children and why she believes that we should be voting differently, or the commission should be voting differently. She needs to make a better case for the people to understand it, tell a better story.
Yeah, I think you're right, Scott, because she simply said, I'm not going to listen to this nonsense, and walked out.
I do believe she has spoken about why she believes in the support of the children and the funding for children's issues and all that. I do think it's interesting. Scott brings up a really good point. We would not be talking about Commissioner's Court from yesterday had this not happened.
Yeah,
so she did control the news. By doing that, she brought our attention to it. Unfortunately, the attention went to her walking out, not the issue that seemed to be at hand. And so to go to Scott's point, if she could have articulated better, maybe when she walked out, she said something more to the effect of, I'm walking out because this, and given the statistics and the numbers and the amounts, and then walked out, that would have been the soundbite we were playing, and that may have...
Better than just calling it nonsense and walking out.
Yeah.
Again, 713-440-8870. Felicia from Spring is on the line. Felicia, welcome to Hello Houston. What is your comment or question about Hidalgo?
Yes, I feel like she walked out, and that actually made sense because she walked out because of the budget. I work with children every day, and I see parents that need daycare and everything for their children in order to work. Those budgets and everything, people are not realizing how important that is for that money, that funding to go towards the children to have proper daycare and safe environment for them to reside in while their parents are working and everything, which is helping our economy.
Felicia, thank you very much for those comments and your thoughts. 713-440-8870. Dennis from Garden Oaks is on the line. He wants to talk, though, back to a story we were just talking about a moment ago about what happened at the Hyundai plant. Dennis, what's on your mind?
Yeah, I would just say that Trump has spent his entire life litigating, and so it doesn't really matter if something's legal or not. He's going to do whatever he chooses to do and then litigate afterwards. There's a book, President in Chief, that chronicles his litigation throughout his life. And so this is pretty much every issue. He does what he wants and then litigates afterwards.
Good point.
Dennis, thank you for that. Also, if you go back and you watch the movie The Apprentice, that movie that was made about young Donald Trump, what I like about the film is it helps me, if in fact it is factual, it helps you understand how he comes to the way he approaches and looks at the world. I think it's a really interesting film. I don't agree with everything in it, but I think it's an interesting film. Take a look at that. Marie from the Medical Center is also on the line at 713-440-8870. Marie, what's on your mind?
Hi, I just wanted to say that immigration is immigration, deportation is deportation. Why didn't the CEO of Hyundai or someone in charge, HR, as we all have, take care of these people's visas, their extensions? What is going on? That's what I wanted to know.
Marie, we want to know too. Thank you for calling and sharing that. I'm not exactly sure.
These
I know
weren't
what
immigrants. These were workers that were going to be here for a very finite period of time, just a few weeks, because they were told to come here by their employer. You need to go to America, work at this plant for a few weeks, help these Americans understand what's going on, and come home.
And we do have a YouTube comment. Dark One is posing this question, and did they need 300 people to do the training? I suspect that many of the 300 were not training. They became illegal after the 90 days, and they were here well past that time period.
And that goes back to what Marie was talking about, is why did HR or whomever not make sure that they had all their papers in order and what they needed to be able to stay the time they stayed? I don't really actually know, outside of the reports you're sharing, what exactly was what they did or did not do, correct or incorrect.
What their lawyers tell you.
Yeah.
Their lawyers are saying they had B-1 visas and that they were here on those.
Right. So anyway, thank you for those comments, thoughts. We're always interested in what you're thinking. 713-440-8870.
Coming up on Hello Houston, we will talk with Craig Rhodes, the Senior Vice President of Economic Development at the Greater Houston Partnership, about Houston's job market. What's going on? This is News 88.7. Stay with us.
Hello, I'm Josh Adams, General Manager of Houston Public Media. This station just lost $2.2 million in federal support annually. To keep our station strong, we've launched the Resiliency Fund, powered by community members just like you. Your support will help bridge the funding gap and ensure these programs remain free and accessible to everyone. If public media and this station matter to you, now is the time to act. Support the Resiliency Fund today at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
This week in This American Life, when Angela's family goes on vacation, her dad plans everything. One year, the plan went awry.
I don't think I was particularly traumatized.
Wow, you got hit by lightning.
Like, lightning's not personal. The lightning wasn't like, Angela, you're ugly.
When nature, fate, or the federal government mess with your plans, that's this week.
This American Life, it's on tonight at 9 p.m.
Tonight on Houston Public Media TV 8, it's a night of new nature and science. At 7, the 2-hour premiere of Season 2 of Big Cats 24/7, followed at 9 by the new series Sacred Planet. Tonight on TV 8.
Support comes from Specs, focusing on whiskey and bourbon this month, with sips of oak, vanilla, and more, featuring known and small batch varieties. More information available at specsonline.com. The fun starts here. Support for Houston Public Media comes from listeners like you and from St. Luke's Health and the St. Luke's Foundation, supporting clinical excellence, compassionate care, and a healthier future for all. More at supportstlukes.org.
Support comes from LaPorte CPAs and Business Advisors, an independent accounting and business advisory firm serving clients for more than 75 years, with 190 employees across offices in Houston, New Orleans, and other locations. More information at laporte.com.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now back to Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
The Houston job market took a noticeable dip in July, shedding over 30,000 jobs, a number that might raise eyebrows. But how much of this decline is seasonal, and how concerned should we be? To help us make sense of the numbers and discuss where the jobs were lost, where they're still growing, and what these trends say about Houston's broader economic health, we're joined by Craig Rhodes, Senior Vice President of Economic Development at the Greater Houston Partnership. If you'd like to join the conversation, you know the number, 713-440-8870. Craig, welcome to the program.
Great. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay.
I really appreciate it.
30,000 jobs sounds like a lot. Is it?
It was, definitely jumped off the page a little bit. Obviously, we don't like to see the red numbers, but I think you mentioned in the intro there's a seasonal element to what we see with the jobs numbers, right? So we always see a natural dip in January. We see a similar dip in July. Certainly overall job growth this year has been slower still positive for the Houston region overall. I think when we look at a 12-month rolling cycle in terms of job growth, and when we look at that July to July number, it's actually a positive number, 62,000 in that 12 months. So that does help level off some of the seasonal elements to the job growth. We see things like teacher contracts that expire in July. Those will get renewed in August and September, so we'll gain most of those jobs back over the second half of this year. But there is a natural dip in January and July every year, just based on sort of seasonal elements to job growth.
You know, Craig, oftentimes on Hello Houston, we'll be looking at housing, or we're looking at Houston from different perspectives. And we hear that Houston and Harris County, our area, is unique. Talk to us a little bit how it's unique. Houston and this area is unique when it comes to jobs and it comes to economics.
Sure. No. So I think we're looking for, right, at the Greater Houston Partnership, all things that are uniquely Houston, right? What makes Houston stand out, both nationally within Texas and also globally, for sure. We know we're a global metropolitan city. So I think the infrastructure that's here, right, is a big part of the selling point, right? Whether it's the port, the airports, the overall infrastructure that we have, and the opportunities for business to locate here. We have a diverse and talented workforce, right? We know we're an international melting pot of cultures, races, ethnicities, religions. That's a big part of our what makes the unique fabric of Houston, and that's something we know companies we talk to want to hire a diverse and talented workforce. We've got great universities and colleges in the region that are all, can help companies in terms of that long-term pipeline of talent. And so all those things are really, I think a unique part of what helps Houston stand out, and I think why we've continued to attract growth across the Houston region.
Help me understand also, as we talk about this, we're kind of talking about it in this own little nutshell here, but when you look at other major cities, how are we doing compared to them? Is our growth up, down? What are they doing to help us understand how we're doing?
Yeah, no, so it's a great point. So that's the first thing we look at, right? Is if there are trends happening, are they national trends? Are they just specific to Houston? And I would say, across the board, we're holding our own with our peer cities, and in many cases outpacing them from a job growth standpoint. If you look at calendar year 2024, we had 49,500 new jobs. That put us fourth in the U.S. overall, right? So we're the fifth largest metro. We were fourth in job growth, so we're a little bit ahead of pace there overall. If you look at that number I mentioned earlier, the rolling 12-month cycle of 62,000 jobs, that puts us third in the U.S. overall in terms of job growth, and slightly ahead of Dallas, which is always nice.
That's always nice. So that's where we are. Where will we be in 6 months and a year, do you think? Do you do that kind of forecasting?
So we will do some forecasting at the end of the year. Obviously, as I mentioned earlier, the job growth this year is slower across the board. That's a national trend. That's not a Houston specific area. A lot of uncertainty in the market right now, and uncertainty causes companies to pause. You're right. In my area of economic development, that means not the same pace of job growth and investments. And so we had projected last year around 70,000 new jobs for 2025. We're not going to get to that number, but we do see positive job growth the second half of this year, kind of from September to the end of the year. We expect that number to be somewhere in the 20 to 30,000 range. So we would hope to be about half of what we thought job growth was going to be, in November, December of last year.
And what sectors?
So more jobs, more people working in the healthcare sector than any other sector in Houston, right? So the energy capital of the world, but more people working in healthcare. Manufacturing, we've had some great announcements in the manufacturing sector with companies like Foxconn and their partnerships with Apple and NVIDIA, Inventec, and others that are expanding in our advanced manufacturing sector. And then certainly we've got a population now at 7.8 million, right? We added 200,000 new Houstonians last year. And so those sectors to support that kind of population growth, retail, restaurants, bars, public education, those are all areas that we're going to see continued growth in.
You talk about the population increase, but you talk about the job numbers, and if you're doing the math, it's 30,000 additional jobs if you're then taking away. But the influx of people is so much more. How does that calculate in when you look at the numbers?
Yeah, so overall population growth I mentioned way up, right? We're actually second only behind New York last year in total population growth. So positive sign for us, right? People are voting, and 75% of that was migration into the region, both international and domestic. So I would say people are voting with their feet, right, in their U-Haul trailers, and they're coming to Houston. Beautiful weather we've had the last couple of days, right, Frank?
We'll take it when we can get it.
That's right. They're not always coming for the weather.
But are they coming in with jobs, or are they coming in to find jobs?
I think a little bit of both. Some of them are relocating because they've been hired here, but I think job opportunities is a big part of the story for why people are choosing to come to Houston, for
So
sure.
then are we matching opportunity for this huge number of people that's coming in for the number of jobs you talk about being created?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know that we've done that level of analysis to see. I mean, in general, what we would say is for new employers that are coming into the marketplace, we have a diverse and talented workforce here. We have a pipeline of talent. We're growing in our 0 to 18 population category, which a lot of major metros aren't growing. So these companies aren't looking at 2 and 3 year investments. They're looking at 30 and 40 year investments. And is this a market that they can attract and grow talent in? And so we think all those numbers add up to a positive story for Houston, but there is some analysis to be done as we add population that we're meeting that demand with the new job growth.
And, Craig, we did have a YouTube comment from The Truth that says energy companies slimming down workforce is a huge headwind for Houston's growth. How do you factor oil and gas type volatility when you're looking at these type of analysis of jobs?
Sure. No. So obviously we're proud of our energy sector, right? We're certainly the energy capital of the world. The partnership has done a lot of work in the last few years to make sure that we're going to maintain that, right, with energy transition and all the new energy areas. So the oil and gas industry continues to get more efficient in the way that they do their work, which requires less people. So we're getting record high production with fewer wells and fewer people, right, in the traditional oil and gas sector. I always take that as a sign, right? People say Houston's not a tech town. That's technology, right? That's creating that kind of a opportunity in the oil and gas sector. So where we will see growth in the energy is going to be in new energies, clean tech, clean energy transition. And we're seeing a lot of those projects. We've had a number of solar companies, for example, that have located in the Houston region. And so we're continuing to see growth in the energy sector generally, but it's going to be in new energy.
And you're talking about clean energies, and we understand that this administration has rolled back a lot of the clean energy efforts. And, I've attended CERAWeek multiple times to report on coverage, and it was a very different CERAWeek from last year to this year. How are you balancing that out when you look at jobs? Does it affect oil and gas? How is it affecting oil and gas?
Yeah, so I think the partnership's position has always been that this is going to be a long-term transition. This energy transition is not going to happen overnight, right? It's going to be a long-term process. And so certainly we've seen some pause in some of the international investment side. As I mentioned earlier, we saw a number of solar companies from across the world that chose to locate in Houston, build new facilities here on the solar manufacturing, in part to take advantage of the IRA program and some of the federal programs. There's a little bit of uncertainty about the future of some of those, and so we have seen a little bit of slowing in some of those investment areas. But overall, those companies are here, and we think long-term there's still going to be opportunities for them to grow here in the Houston region.
Now, that's what I was going to ask you is where is the lack? Where are we failing that we could improve?
Yeah, so good question. I think I mentioned earlier, kind of joked about being a technology town, right? I think we continue to see opportunities to grow on the digital tech, and there's a lot of great technology in Houston that's embedded in non-tech industry, and so how do we continue to grow and advance ourselves in kind of innovation and tech sector. We're seeing this resurgence around advanced manufacturing. A lot of these companies came to Houston to serve compact computers, back in the late 80s, early 90s. Some of them left and did production overseas. It's exciting to see them coming back into the U.S. and specifically the Houston region. And so this AI manufacturing area, Foxconn has been on the record saying they see Houston as really a hub for this advanced manufacturing, which we hope is going to create a lot of new jobs and opportunities. So always ways to improve with where we're at. Life sciences and biotech is another area we're really excited about. We've been a great healthcare community overall. Texas Medical Center, right, world's largest, MD Anderson, global reach on cancer care. We haven't been big on the biotech commercialization side, and so we think there's some really exciting opportunities for how we take that next step to the commercial side. outside of biotech.
When do you start to get concerned? We talk a lot about the economy, what's going on there. We see tariffs. There's questions about what the tariff impact is going to be. We see this slight job loss right now that you've explained away. But when does it become an issue that you folks start to get worried and concerned? What do we look for number-wise?
Yeah, so I think a couple things that we would look at. One, right, while we're seeing slower growth, we're not seeing an uptick yet in unemployment or layoffs, right? So that has stayed pretty stable. So we're seeing slower job creation, but we're not seeing a big spike on that side of the ledger. That would be something we would pay attention to. Also, for our work in the project pipeline, if we start to see a real decline in overall interest and activity around new project potential. So our team has seen 140 new potential projects looking and considering the Houston region just so far, year to date this year. That's 3 to 4 new potential projects every week that our team is engaging on.
How does that compare to past years?
Yeah, it's right up there. So post-pandemic, right, Texas was the first state to reopen, and we've seen a significant uptick since then for the Houston region, and it's right on par with what we've seen the last 5 or 6 years in terms of record high interest and activity. Texas is on the short list, and then Houston's the international city of Texas. We're the port city of Texas. We have some of that great infrastructure we talked about earlier. All those things, I think, really drive interest in Houston. And so if that started to really taper off or decline, then I think we would have some concern. But right now, the interest is still really high. And those are companies that, if they choose to locate here, right, that's our job, to convince them to do that. Those are projects that will create jobs, later this year, next year, and in the years to come.
So who's in the better pool? The people looking for the job, or the company that has to find people that are looking for jobs?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I've thought about it that way before. I think there's still lots of job opportunities out there. I know Foxconn, for example, just had a job fair with Houston City College last week for new opportunities within their facilities that they're going to be opening here soon. So I think if you're out there looking for job, opportunities, I think there are going to be, chances for those potential areas. And then obviously the partnership's really focused on upskilling Houston, right, and the work we're doing on the workforce development, how we create opportunity for all, and how we create economic mobility within the region, and make sure we have a great overall population base, a growing long-term pipeline of talent. How do we make sure we're getting those people funneled into these the right areas for the right training and skill sets? And we're really fortunate. We've got great universities, our great college systems here that are really in tune with industry and making sure we're training. I'll give one example, right? San Jacinto College is going to be opening a new biotech manufacturing training center, which really is going to put Houston right on the cutting edge of helping train that workforce to help in the commercialization of biotech.
Now, Craig, when we're looking at the fact that Houston is an extremely international city, you talked about it, we have a lot of global companies that are here. Are we seeing any direct effects from the sweeping immigration policies that we've been seeing hit Houston?
Yeah, I don't think we've seen any specific effects yet. In fact, I look at international travel through the Houston airport system year to date through July was actually up, all-time record high. So I thought that was interesting. Also, just in terms, you mentioned tariffs earlier and kind of the potential impact. Certainly, we're a major trading hub, a port city, but container cargo activity through the Port of Houston through July was actually up, right? Record high in terms of overall container cargo. So we're not seeing yet the potential impacts, not to say it's not there and could happen. Certainly, Houston's an international city. 1 in 4 Houstonians is foreign-born. 30% of our workforce is an international workforce. And so it's an important part of the fabric of Houston, an important part of our workforce. And so any policies or changes in that would have impact could certainly have a ripple effect on Houston overall.
We talk about the energy sector. We talk about now the healthcare sector. Are we positioning ourselves for where we need to be 40, 50 years from now? Are you seeing that forward thinking of where are we going to be as a people and what are we going to need to be to stay on the cutting edge?
Yeah, I think there is a lot of investments being made, right, on the infrastructure side, mobility, transportation, those areas. I would also say we have a sister organization with Center for Houston's Future that kind of looks at that sort of 10-year and beyond horizon. They're working on a new strategic plan, looking at some of those new economies and places that we want to look at. One of those is just specifically around some of the brain research stuff. There's new state funding around the brain economy and what that could look like for Houston. Similar, could we be a leader in that space like we have in the cancer research side? So I think there's some exciting work that's being done to sort of look long term at where we want to be. And then again, AI is going to be a part of it, right? I think we're required to mention it, right? In all discussions. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But I think, Houston can be a hub for a lot of pieces of that. We're talking about the manufacturing, building the server systems that are going to support it. Also on the implementation side, right? Large healthcare institutions, major corporate entities where we could see heavy implementation of that technology.
Craig Rhodes is the Senior Vice President of Economic Development at the Greater Houston Partnership. Craig, thank you for joining us today on Hello Houston.
All right. Thank y'all so much. Appreciate it.
Coming up, we're going to discuss fertility. Stay with us as Hello Houston continues. With federal funding cuts, Houston Public Media has lost $2.2 million annually. In response, we have launched the Resiliency Fund, an urgent initiative to protect the programs and services you rely on. That includes PBS Kids, that provides free educational programming to children and families across Greater Houston. Your support of the Resiliency Fund helps keep this vital service accessible to our community. Give now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
You can hear that Thursday at 8 p.m.
Support comes from Rice University's Master of Interdisciplinary Studies, a flexible degree taught by Rice faculty, balancing life and learning for working adults. Applications due by October 15th. More at gls.rice.edu.
Support comes from electricityplans.com, helping Houstonians find electricity plans based on home energy usage, with tools to compare rates. Enrollment details and more at electricityplans.com.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now back to Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
According to the CDC, about 1 in 5 couples in the U.S. struggle to conceive after 1 year of trying. The Fearlessly Fertile method, created by Rosanne Austin, tackles fertility in a way beyond just treatments and tests, and instead aims to help women reconnect with their femininity to achieve their goal of becoming a mother. To tell us more about this and her work in helping women, we're joined now by Rosanne Austin, the founder of the Fearlessly Fertile method. Rosanne, welcome to Hello Houston.
Thank you so much for having me.
And if you have a question or comment for Rosanne, you can give us a call or send us a text, 713-440-8870. Now, Rosanne, a lot of your work revolves around helping women specific, but how would you say there's some misconceptions, or would you say there are some misconceptions that fertility only falls on women?
Absolutely. And first of all, I think one of the biggest misconceptions overall is that fertility is just a physical problem. Mm-hmm. I have found in my work over the past 11 years that it's more holistic than that, and that it takes two to tango. You have women's health and you have men's health. And specifically around fertility, people are looking at egg quality, sperm count, all these things, but it's a larger question about lifestyle and overall health.
And when you're talking about lifestyle and overall health, what exactly are you looking at? And we'll focus more on women right now. So, for example, what in a woman's lifestyle could be affecting her fertility?
Well, I learned this the hard way, Celeste. So I was a prosecutor in California for 10 years, and I was prosecuting sex crimes. And when my husband and I decided that we wanted to start to have a family, I figured, all right, we made the decision. I'll be pregnant by May. I have a big trial in September. It'll, just roll. But what I wasn't considering was the cumulative impact of the stress I was under. Not sleeping enough, not eating enough, not exercising enough, and all of the mental stress that was going on. I mean, I would be called at 8:30 in the morning to go to an autopsy or to watch a forensic interview of a sexual assault survivor. And all of that stress, I just treated as if that was normal. And in my life, it was. So when we started to struggle with fertility, I just started asking questions. I went to a doctor and they said, well, you're old. You're over the hill at 37. And I was like, what?
How dare they?
I know. And I just freaked out, and I was like, wait a second, I don't feel old. And so I started to look around at other aspects of health, and I was like, in my mind, I'm 90. because of all of the stress that I was under. Yet what was interesting, we were being treated at a top 10 teaching hospital in the San Francisco Bay Area. I asked my physicians, I said, could stress have anything to do with it? They said, no, there's no data to back that up. But we know that since 2016, there's over 39 published peer-reviewed studies readily available on PubMed demonstrating the connection between the mind and the body, high cortisol, lower fertility rates. And I think this affects professional women in a really acute way that nobody's talking about.
And let me chime in. As an adoptee, there's so many cases where a couple decide to adopt. And once that has been decided, suddenly she gets pregnant because the stress of having a child naturally has been taken away. Because you know you have a child coming, you're going to adopt this child, and then the stress goes away and you suddenly find yourself pregnant and an adopted child. That happens a lot. So what does someone do? I mean, you don't want to just read a self-help book, but how does a woman and perhaps her partner get into this mindset of learning how to let go, and how do they know what to let go of?
Well, that's a great question. I'm the daughter of an adoptee, and I helped my dad find his parents. So that's one of the greatest gifts of my legal career, was I was able to do that. But one of the things that I teach is literally how to create that mental state of surrender, of peace, of joy in the process of conception without necessarily having to give up. And it's about calming the nervous system. It's about learning to think, believe, take action in an entirely different way. Because couples and women are facing this crisis that when they go into a fertility clinic, the first thing that happens is they're slapped in the face with these frightening statistics. So your desire for a child goes from, yay, we're excited to have this family, to, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? You know, we could die alone. It turns into this extreme. So it's really about teaching men and women how to calm their nervous system through completely changing their inner monologue. So this is not mindfulness. This is practical strategies for changing what we think about ourselves, what we think about our bodies, what we think about our fertility from the inside out.
Okay, but to follow up what Celeste said in her introduction to you, it's not that you're saying reconnect with your sanity or your relaxation, or it's reconnecting with femininity. How does that play into this, that terminology? Explain, walk me through that.
Ooh, I love that question, because that's my most recent book, is called The Feminine Fertility Cure. And for women like me, lovably type A control freaky professionals that are, you know.
No, I have no idea what you're talking about. I feel attacked.
Turn and look at Celeste.
Yeah. I say this with so much love, though, because we will chart our menstrual cycle with the precision of a lunar landing. And then we start to get into this process of trying to have a baby. And we go into what I call man mode. And we completely lose sight of what's so beautiful about being a woman. It's the spiritual, the creative, the nurturing, the loving, and the person that can see abundance and love all around. We just go into panic mode. So it's really taking our mental state and our nervous system from fight or flight into a state of peace. And so many women, I'm Gen X, so I came up at a time where the idea is wear a power suit, act like a man, compete like a man, work like a man. And what I teach women is to really reclaim working like a woman, because we have a cycle for a reason. There's many different aspects of who we are that go up and down throughout the month, and that's nothing to be ashamed of, but to really look at our work in a way that honors the feminine. So I work primarily with physicians, lawyers, teachers, nurses, engineers, and women that know this very masculine side.
Does industry allow that? Or is it set by men, built by men, men's structure? So how do you do that and still hold down a job, still work?
Well, I think two things can be true at the same time, right? So in the courtroom, I couldn't show my emotion when I'm when I'm direct examining a child who was molested. I can't cry with her. But what I can do is show feminine leadership. And I think that that's the kind of thing that we're going to see a resurgence of in the workplace, because I think that hard edge of having to act like a man, I think that's dying. I think men are amazing. I'm married to one and I gave birth to one. So it's fantastic, but what we're looking at is really finding a way for the masculine and the feminine in the workplace, at the home, in our fertility clinics. You know, I was just at a fertility clinic in New York City last 2 weeks ago now, we're filming a documentary. And what I'm seeing is a change in the approach in really integrative health when it comes to fertility clinics. The best of the best are starting to recognize this. So the idea that, it's just numbers, you're just a number, and things like that is a very masculine approach. But we're seeing the best fertility clinics on the planet starting to take notice of mindset, overall health, instead of just looking at us like statistics. So that's exciting. That's how we're going to get out of that masculine paradigm.
Do you have any data on if this is working? I mean, I know it worked for you, but do you hear from so many women that thank goodness I finally got onto this trail?
In my coaching practice.
Yeah.
I mean, I've helped women from ages 28 to 54 get pregnant with less than 1% odds. Because if you're just treating the body and you're not treating what's going on inside, then you're missing half of it. And we know this. We see this in cancer patients. We see this in chronic illnesses and other places. You can treat patients with the same treatment protocol. One is excited about life and ready to live. The other one will die right on time. So the person that wrote the foreword to my first book was Dr. Bernie Siegel, well known, Love, Medicine, and Miracles. We all love him. And he was teaching me that as a mentor, and we see this all over the world, Frank, like regardless. I mean, I coach women all over the world, so I see this from Houston to Zimbabwe. And when you add this piece of the puzzle, when you treat yourself as a whole, you create an entirely different result. I mean, I was more fertile in my 40s naturally than I was in my 30s with $100,000 in IVF treatments.
There you go.
Roseanne.
How do people find out about you?
They can find me at www.frommaybe2baby.com or on my podcast, the Fearlessly Fertile Podcast.
Rosanne Austin is the founder of the Fearlessly Fertile Method. Rosanne, thanks for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Thank you for having me.
And that brings us to the end of our show.
No.
I know.
Already?
But I've got good news. We'll be back tomorrow.
With current obsessions.
With current obsessions, start sending those in. We want to thank you for joining us today on Hello Houston. We will be back tomorrow with more conversations. This is News 88.7.
Thanks for listening to Hello Houston. Join us every Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. to talk all things Houston. The Hello Houston production team includes Garrett Bowman, William Menjivar, Jen Altide, Todd Holslander, and Jim Kovacic. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at HoustonPublicMedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media.
Support comes from Dekamera, presenting Other Worlds Season Overture. Works by Ravel, Rachmaninoff, and Schubert, featuring pianist Enon Barnatan and violinist Tessa Lark. October 3rd at the Wortham Center. Tickets at Dekamera.com.
You're in